Hello, and so we've moved through the history of bodyboarding, my Maury Boogie days, which were 76 through 1981. And then I went on and did a couple other things, and then I went to the BIM magazine, Bodyboarding International Magazine, 1991, and I just completed the video on that, and I hope you can watch it later. And if you have any questions, be sure and type them in. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the BIA, or just reminisce, go down memory lane with the BIA. Hi, Joe. And I wanted them like 3 different spots so that you could, watch whatever one you wanted, or some people might not be interested in 1970s, and some people might want to talk about the BIA. All right, so now we're publishing the magazine circa 1993, and I was covering the NSSA, but I wanted to cover my own events. Remember, I came off of putting on events with Maury Boogie, and all those events with Maury Boogie, and then of course Mary Lee took over in 81 when I left, but there was nobody doing events. And JP Patterson down at Maury Boogie called me up and said, we have a whole warehouse full of scaffolding and this, that, and the other, and do you want it? Because we don't know what to do with it. And I heard you were putting on events. I go, yeah, I want it. So I got all the scaffolding. We look good. I mean, even though we went out on the first events in 93 with, I called it a table and a tent, we went out, and I remember it took up no social media in those days, remember. I mean, this is like how big word of mouth is. I mean, it truly is. Because I remember our first event had, I believe, over 100 contestants. And hi, Mark. I just was overwhelmed, I mean, I was publishing the magazine, and now out there on a 2-day weekend. I believe it was at Huntington Beach, maybe Oceanside, probably Oceanside. And I just was real tired. I mean, going into it, I was real tired. So I'm up there on the first heat, goes out in the water, and we had a couple things that you had to do that I wanted to tell you, like in that last video, I was telling you how the BIA had a couple things that were a little bit different than most contests you enter. Just like BIM, one of the biggest features in BIM was postcards with all the little people that would never be in a magazine ever. That was one of our most popular pages, was postcards. Anyone could be in the magazine, because you just send it in and we'll print it. I mean, what a concept. And that was how I kind of wanted the BIA. I wanted the BIA to be, I wanted it to be a little bit different than most events. And here's a couple things that we did differently. Number one, you didn't have to be this rider that just wants to compete. I created a division called the Recreational Division. And in the Recreational Division, you could just go out and try it, see if it's something you like. It was kind of like a throw-over from the Jamborees, where just go try the board, see if you like it. And a lot of people would come up and go, what's going on here? And I go, hey, you want to try it? Sure. And so we would let these recreational riders go out and be in a heat. But if you were some like little wise guy out of San Clemente, or not San Clemente, but Santa Monica or somewhere, and you thought, I'm going to be in the recreational division, I'm going to win that so I can get a trophy and a board. Well, didn't last very long, because if you won the recreational division, you had to bump into AAA or A division. Okay. So the little ones that tried to outsmart Patty didn't last very long. They got bumped. I mean, the judges could see that out there was not a recreational rider just going straight off, riding the board. These youngsters wanted to win, so they showed off. So anyway, that was the recreational division, something different than any other. There's no other contest format I've ever seen that did anything like the Recreational Division, and it was hugely popular, really popular. The other thing that was very important to me was to get the best judges. So I hooked up with Chris Grunoni, who was an avid bodyboarder. Many of you know him that might be watching this now or later. And I let Chris be the head judge, and we were going to have judging clinics. We were going to pay the judges more than most judges. Remember the cover shots on BIM? We paid the photographers more in cash as it ran because we wanted the best cover shots. Well, that's what we wanted at the BIA. We wanted the best judges. So we paid them good. We built a separate tent. You know, like we had a food tent for the competitors, and then we had a food tent for the judges with a waitress or waiter going to the scaffoldings on both sides of the event, taking them anything they wanted. Bring me an orange, bring me something to drink, bring me, because we did not want their eyes off of the event. My whole thing was if you get into a BIA event, you knew that you were going to be judged that whole 15 or 20 minutes that you're out there. It was not going to be, oh, the guy was over there looking at the chick with the bathing suit walking on the beach. No, our judges were well-known judges. Manny Vargas, Guillermo Tamega, Pat Caldwell, pros were judging the BIA. And they knew what they wanted to see out in the water, so it was very cool. I mean, it was very cool. The other thing was, you know, so we allowed the recreational rider in, and then we had a pro division, and then we paid the judges, and we started, there were so many events that I'd gone to where it's 8 o'clock and it says 7 o'clock, and now the event's going on because it's all blown out at 2 o'clock because they couldn't get it started early. Well, I always wanted the events to start right at 7, and like we said, in punto, sharp, you know, and then we could get out of there hopefully before the early blowout in the afternoon, and then we would come back on Sunday and up till, you know, 1-ish and do the finals. So it was always 2-day event. And not maybe in the beginning days, but when we got into 200 people and stuff like that, we did the 2-day. Now, another thing that was very different in the BIA than any other events that I've ever been to was you got fed breakfast and lunch. And I decided at the time to just put an extra $5 on the entry fee. And I went to Costco and bought one of those big bags of solid sugar Cheerios and Fruit Loops or whatever they were, put a big gallon of milk out there with some bowls and spoons, and these kids would show up on the beach at 6 o'clock, and that was like their breakfast. I mean, did we have time to make them scrambled eggs and all that? No, but we gave them something, you know, because the parents would drop them off, and I used to feel so bad if we were at a event where there was no food, you know, where you could buy food. These kids would go all day without food. So I was committed to breakfast, which was and then lunch was always really good. And if you talk to any of the Miskoffs or any of the parents that came down, they really enjoyed that food tent where we would fire up the chili and beans or the hamburgers or whatever, and you could have a pretty decent lunch. And it was always like, so what time's lunch? It wasn't like, what time's my heat going to go out? It's now, what time's the food tent going to open up? I loved it. I mean, I loved shopping for all the food. I loved feeding all the kids. That was one of the best parts of the BIA in my mind, you know. So I definitely saw it grow at that point, and it's growing and it's growing. And then I thought, okay, so I've got to do the magazine. I've got to do the BIA. Now I talked to my tax guy, and he goes, you know, you need a motorhome to, you know, go and get off work and go sleep over there where you're driving to, and then stay there for 2 days. So that many of you that came to the BIA events might have seen that motorhome out there where Patty was sleeping, sometimes at T Street, and people would say, how'd you get that? That's such a great campsite. How'd you get that campsite? You know, and it was always like, well, I have a permit for this beach, you know. So can you tell us what happened to the let me get up a little bit closer to the screen here, to the tools that made the mock SCS and the dimple bottom boards, please. Oh, okay, you're getting into manufacturing. That wasn't my forte. We got to get somebody on that can answer that one. The quality of riders who signed up for BIA were amazing. 2-day contests, 2 heats going on at the same time. For many of the rounds, that is a huge number of amateur riders. Yes, it is. Okay, so here's how it evolved. So now, like Jordan said, as we're getting a lot of riders and they're working up to the AAA, kind of a back, remember, go back to my first video where we were talking about the Western Boogie. To become a pro, you had to go to AAA. Well, BIA was the same way. You had to go to AAA. And after we had like 4 or 5 riders that had won AAA, then we went pro. Okay, so I can honestly say I was so proud that the BIA could now pay decent. You know, if you won, it was not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you could go home with some money if you were if you came to a BIA contest, and you didn't have to pay that much to be in it, and so you could go home with some money if you won. Actually, money down 3 places. Not a lot, like I said, but you got money for all 3 places. Then one day, someone came up to me, and this is the part that I'm going to, that's real important to me, because we never got credit for it. The BIA didn't get credit for this. But one day, someone asked me, why are the prone riders having to compete with the drop knee riders? And what is the criteria? You've got this amazing, judging staff. Why do we have to compete with them? And so that was the day I decided that we were going to go pro drop knee. Okay, listen to me say that again. Pro drop knee. The first time anyone ever competed in a drop knee event by themselves and made money was in the BIA. That was one of the BIA claims to fame, let's say. And it's done now all over the place. People are putting on pro events, but I'm really happy to say that that was one of the things that we did, was we started that pro event. And now the BIA riders are in the mag. We're putting on articles to with the BIA All-Stars and stuff like that. They're still very much a part of the BIA. And here's 1997, the Pro-Am Tour. Okay, BIA. All right, so here's the part that I was the proudest of. Oh, and did you notice how the logo was kind of like the BIM logo? It had the little grid with the BIA in a little circle of like the world, because our intentions were to go worldwide, at some point. So anyway, here are the divisions. Competitive A, competitive B, that would be the beginners. The elite, oh, they had different names. That's right. It wasn't A and B and all that. It was the elite division, drop knee, and female. Yeah. And we did a pro for the drop knee and the Pro-Am. And I was like, I mean, I can honestly say that was one of the proudest moments, not coming from a competitive, let's push competition, but the fact that I got the drop knee riders out of the prone divisions. That was one thing I'm really proud of, that I did that with the BIA, and we started that. That's one thing that's part of our claim to fame. And did you have any questions about the BIA? You can type it in there in the chat room, and I'll answer them for you. Or if you want to call in, you can give a story, a BIA story, or ask a question. Would love that. I'm just looking through here on the All-Stars, the Amateur Bodyboard Championships. And, you know, you can see that like a lot of these people, the BIA and the contest there, they made their money by doing that. See how they showed their boards? You know, they had to show their sponsor. They were showing off their boards and that type of thing. So that was the BIA, Bodyboard International Association. And I'm so glad that you stayed with me. And thank you, Jordan, for the wonderful comments about the quality and the quantity and all that of the riders. It was pretty amazing. It was amazing times. Now, like I said with Maury Boogie, I hit my 5-year mark, 81, and left. BIM, I hit my 5-year mark and left. And then I went to the 5-year mark with BIA, and lo and behold, Chris Granoni took over. And Chris Granoni ran with the BIA for years. And I don't know what happened to the sport. You know, I'm now, I'm just in various different places. So I want to just end this one, because this was more about the competition, in what's going on today. Today, the Pro Tour is in kind of a little turmoil. It went from the APB to ICB. If anyone knows what's going on or any news about that, you can type it in. But my theory is, and I'm going to go on record with this because I'm recording, that the pro divisions, strictly pro, leaving the amateurs and the newbies and the new people out of the equation, is what lost the steam in the sport. Believe it or not. You know, you can go to a NASCAR race and you can watch the races and all that, and they're great, but you got the little kids down there doing go-karting and getting into driving and that type of thing. We lost it by losing those recreational riders. Whoever starts it up again, or wants to start it up again, or has an interest in starting it up again, would be best served to go back and look at how we did Maury Boogie, how we did the BIA, how we started all these events and grew pretty big too, and watch how we did it with the the younger kids. That's where you start. And Joey Gregory's got this event coming up. Let's see if I can bring it up here. This one here. I don't know if you can see that. The California Bodyboarding Summer Beach Camp. If you can read that. That, my friends, right there, and if it happens because of the, the isolation and everything right now, it's June 22nd. See that stoke on that little person's face? Joey is on to where we need to be in the sport. Okay? And I want to interview Joey too, because this is where it's got to go. It's gone now 75, 85, 95, 2005, 2015, 20. We have 45 years now in the sport. Can you believe it? I mean, I was like in my 30s. Now I'm in my 70s. I mean, put that into perspective. But this, my friends, is where it's got to go. And this California Bodyboarders Summer Beach Camp is what we need out of you. If you're in any area of the world watching this, start right here. This is the answer right here. Go back to the beach with the little kids, get them stoked. They'll buy boards, which keeps it, the business part of it aggregating, and you'll see a resurgence of the sport. Just like this right here. Just like that. That's what's going to do it. And that's my final words. If you can get involved, I will tell you that it's such an amazing feeling to put on an event that that thrill of watching people get thrilled is exactly what Tom wanted, to enjoy bodyboarding, boogie boarding. So get involved if you can. And thank you for staying with me for 3 parts. It's been a great afternoon, isolating here in California and staying home and being with you. And I will bring future podcasts to you. If there's anything that you would like me to cover, be sure to just drop a line on the history of bodyboarding, and I'll be glad to do it. Okay? All right, so I hope you enjoyed Little Maury Boogie, BIM era, and the BIA, and we'll see you and talk to you on one of my next episodes.